Welcome back to another episode of Three Pete After Me. We're on the road for the first time here in the home clubhouse of the rival Myrtle Beach Pelicans, where we had a cool idea to talk to somebody who might have a different perspective on the RiverDogs three-peat here in Pelicans broadcaster Sam Weiderhaft. He's seen all 3 years in the opposing broadcast booth, both at the Joe and here at Pelicans ballpark, and really excited to talk to him about his perspective, his career path to this point, and how bad he wants to beat the RiverDogs in 2024. How's it going, Sam? Good to catch up with you. We don't see each other a lot during the off season, but how have things been going?
It's been going well, Jason, and to say this is a dream come true would be an understatement. I am super
and a
excited.
lie.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm super excited to be joining the podcast, and things have been going well here in the off season so far.
Good. We'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, we want to talk about your experience with the RiverDogs, and I think talking to you is sort of a unique perspective because you're probably the guy who's seen more RiverDogs baseball from all the broadcasters in the league, aside from me over the last 3 years. Obviously, from a different viewpoint, maybe not quite as thrilled as I've been the last few years, and we'll touch on that. But, I remember distinctly this year, traditionally we've opened the season against one another. We did it this year here at Pelicans ballpark. And you said to me, when like our guys started coming out for batting practice, you saw like the BP tops, the baby blues, and you said those make you kind of feel some way. Can you kind of take me further into what you meant by that?
Truthfully, I have no idea. I mean, you're right. I've seen you guys so many times. I go back to 2021 when we played each other a lot. I mean, we were only playing like 3 teams at that time.
Right.
But
what a year.
Yeah, seriously. And then, 2022 and last year as well. I've always had great respect for what you guys have done. With the success you guys have had. And it's been fun. We've had some really good battles the past 3 years. I mean, there's been some really, really good games in there and some good playoff battles as well and a lot of good memories on and off the field.
No doubt about it, and we'll get into some of those as well. Don't worry.
Good.
Just wanted to talk to you. I think everybody, players especially, have a unique story on maybe when they realized they wanted to be a professional baseball player, et cetera. Was broadcasting something that you thought about? This is going to be your 4th year. You finished 3 years with the Pelicans, but is that something you always knew you wanted to do, or was there a moment or a time where you said, okay, this is where I want to go?
I think I kind of got lucky. I kind of fell into it. I mean, I grew up watching Angels baseball games because I grew up in Southern California. And Steve Fiziak and Rex Hudler were on the TV broadcast, and I loved watching the games and listening to their chemistry together, and they just made the games super fun. The Angels in that time, it was the mid-2000s, they were really good.
Right.
So that was a fun time to be an Angels fan. But I grew up kind of in that environment, and then I moved from California to Indiana, and somehow the high school that I went to had a radio station in the high school. So
Sure.
I got involved my sophomore year of high school doing that. Started calling games when I was a junior and realized that I really enjoyed it. Because when I played sports, I was a more emotional player. Like when I played football, I was always jumping up and down and getting excited. And
That's shocking to me.
I don't
No,
think
I'm
it
just
is.
kidding.
Not at all. You know me too well. But when I realized I could, kind of put those emotions through a broadcast, I fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. Went to Butler University and did it there, and like you said, entering year number 4 with Myrtle Beach.
What's it like moving from California to Indiana, two very similar states?
Yeah, very similar. I remember we drove cross country when we moved. So it was me, my mom, and one of my brothers, and we drove California. We stopped in Las Vegas because my grandparents lived there, and then drove all the way across to Indiana. And when we first got to Indiana, we park at our new house. And I look on the thermometer, 28 degrees.
Right.
And I didn't have a jacket. Like,
Yep.
I had a light sweatshirt. I was not prepared at all. There was snow on the ground. I was like, what is this? I had never really seen snow before. I mean, in the mountains in California.
Right.
But nothing more than that. And it was totally different, but I ended up loving it. I mean, you're a Midwest guy. I'm
Right.
a Midwest guy. I think it's just super nice there. It's not as
Yeah.
crowded. It's just it's a really fun way of living.
Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin, like small town Wisconsin. I had never seen traffic until I interned my first year in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, traffic was like when you would get stuck behind a tractor during plowing season, when they were out there with the combines and the tractors, and there'd be like 5 cars behind a tractor at a stop sign. And then I moved to St. Paul, and it took me like an hour and a half to go 10 miles. And I'm thinking, what is this exactly? Correct me if I'm wrong. Indiana, kind of a divided state baseball-wise, I would imagine, but a lot of Cubs fans. So is that the case? I believe it is,
Yeah.
but is it kind of ironic that you ended up spending some time in Indiana and now you work for a Cubs affiliate?
No, it's really cool. I mean, I did know a lot of Cubs fans. The Reds are really popular
Yep.
where I was because that was only about hour and a half, 2 hours
Sure.
away at Cincinnati. A couple of Indians or Guardians fans now. But that's why the 2016 World Series was so unique. That was my freshman year of college, and it's like campus was basically split in
Yeah.
half. You had a lot of Cubs fans.
Right.
There were also a lot of Cleveland fans too. So it was kind of a mix of everything. But I mean, basketball reigns as the top
No
sport
doubt.
in Indiana by a long shot. So that was kind of the main thing.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you at Hinkle Fieldhouse the other day,
Yeah.
where I'm sure you've spent plenty of time in your life.
Oh, a ton of time, and it was really, really cool to go back. I brought my girlfriend with me, and all the doors were locked. So I'm pulling on all the doors, everything's locked, and there's a security guard on the far end, and he opens the door. He says, "How can I help you?" And I go, "Can we just go in and look around?" He's like, "Sure." So we went in, and all the entrances to the court were blocked, but I went up the ramp up to the second floor, and that was all open. So we got to see the whole thing. We were the only ones in there. It was absolutely incredible. It's a beautiful building.
So you're saying if anybody happens to be on the campus near Hinkle Fieldhouse, just find this security guard and you might be okay? Or was it because, you seem like a pretty important guy?
No,
I've seen how you walk around this ballpark. And people will let you in anywhere.
That was not the case. He was a very nice guy. It was the holiday season, so I think he just wanted to make my day. And he did. I told him, I said, I was a student here, and he goes, yeah, it's a very historic building. I go, oh, I know. I'm very, very well aware. But, it was an incredible time.
So you wanted to get into broadcasting. You started that kind of in high school and then college. But how did you end up in Myrtle Beach? What were kind of the next steps from there to get to this point?
It was it's a really fun story, and I love telling it. But I graduated from Butler in 2020 in the middle of COVID, obviously, and it looked like I was going to go to one of the minor league teams in Tennessee back when they had rookie ball. I was probably going to go there, but obviously that doesn't happen. And my aunt and uncle both are professors at Coastal, and my uncle's actually in the athletic department. So he said, if you want to move down here, we can get you involved and have you do some stuff
Sure.
for the athletic department. I was, I didn't have anything going on at that point because there was really nothing going on at the time because of COVID. So I was like, you know what, let's do it. So I moved down here in late August, early September of 2020, got involved with Coastal. The very first thing I did with Coastal Carolina was I did their voicemail for the ticket office. Yeah,
that's
and I
big.
think it's still the same thing. So when you call Coastal's ticket office and they don't answer, it's still my voice from 2020.
We should maybe try that right now, just to see if we can get there.
No, Patrick's the guy. He's probably going to answer it.
Okay, unbelievable.
But that was the first thing I did, and they were like, "Oh, you got kind of a nice voice," and I was like, "Thank you." And then they had me host the podcast for the athletic department. I did that, and then I started doing Coastal women's basketball on radio. And then all of a sudden, the Pelicans job came open, and they hosted a high school football showcase here in like late December. And Alex Souza with Coastal Carolina calls me, and he says, "Hey, the Pelicans are looking for a broadcaster for this event. Can you do it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I come over, I do it. I meet Kristen, who's our general manager, and we stayed in contact. And the Pelicans job came open, and I was able to get it.
That's cool. I mean, I sometimes you wish things would go that easily. I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and the fact that you were in a city and a job came open like that is, you can't really ask for much more because, as you know, I mean, it's a stressful industry, and people are trying to do this in bulk. I mean, you get probably as many emails as I do of people who are interested in doing this. So that being said, like, how lucky do you feel every day when you show up here? And I've been here for games and, those Friday, Saturday nights where, there's 5,000-6,000 people in here. You have a good team. Like, how much do you make sure to not take it for granted?
I think that's it's hard, right? Because when you get to like the middle of June and July and it's really hot outside and the season's kind of dragging on, like it wears on you a little bit. But you got to remind yourself, like, this is a job that a lot of people want to do, and we're blessed to be able to do it. I mean, it's incredible the way that I was able to get it, and now that I've been here for going into my fourth year, there's a lot of great moments, and I always look back on my time so far here and the great games I've been able to call, the great people I've been able to meet, the great players that have come through here. I mean, it's incredible, and I try not to take it for granted.
And I, from the outside looking in, now it would hurt a lot of people in my life back home to say this as a Brewers fan growing up, but have kind of admired the Cubs and what they do minor league wise, both like player development, great. I mean, that's pretty evident. Anybody can figure that out if you watch games or some of the prospects who are coming through. But like broadcast wise, with Marquee coming into play a few years ago, it just seems like a unique and a cool farm system that gives you some opportunities that you might not get. And I know you're ready to head to one of those places coming up here on the weekend. But what is it like on the inside? Do you realize this is a pretty cool farm system in the way they do things and the opportunities they give you?
Yeah, the best part about being in the Cubs system is the fans, because the fans care about all levels.
Right.
I mean, obviously the major league level, but all the way down to single A, even rookie ball in Arizona. Like, everybody's really tuned in to what the Cubs are doing. So it makes, me feel great, because what we're doing matters. And people are actually watching, and then they care about how these players do, and they care about the broadcast. And like you said, getting ready to go to Chicago this weekend for the Cubs convention to go meet some of those fans and interact with them. It's such an awesome system to be a part of. And and then you mentioned Marquee too. I mean, we have last year we really ramped up our number of Marquee games. I think it was almost like once or twice a series we'd have a game on the Marquee Sports Network, which is really cool for brand exposure, but also fans that have that network get to see that. And it occasionally will come on right after a Cubs game. So Cubs post-game show gets over, and you get right into single-A action to go see the future of it. So it's an incredible system, and really, really fun to work in.
Yeah, I would imagine. And I do want to talk about, I wasn't going to get through this without talking about one of the best food options in the Carolina League.
Of course.
And there's a funny story behind this also, the Chicago-style pizza burger, which on my first trip here in 2022, we couldn't travel in 21 because of COVID-19. I came down the right field line at your suggestion, I believe, found a nice concession stand down there. I can't remember what it's called right now.
Clark and Addison Grill.
Yeah, Clark and Addison, which is, of course, the intersection where Wrigley Field is in Chicago. And it says, I remember reading the description, and I'm like, it's a burger between two personal pizzas. And I'm like, okay, so this is not something I'm going to order right now, but I'm going to prepare on a different day where I'm not going to eat all day, and then come in on like 15 hours of an empty stomach and then try it. And it was the best thing I've had. Now, how often do you dabble in the Chicago-style pizza burger?
Jason, I tell you, I think I've had it. I think I do it once a year, and it's always when you're here.
Okay.
I might have done it twice last year. I can't remember. But that is a thing that you got to clear your schedule. You got to make sure, going into the ballpark that day, that night you're getting the Chicago-style pizza burger. And I mean, you get the reward. It's a really, really good sandwich. I mean, it is something I've never had before. And that Addison Clark, or the Clark and Addison Grill, has a lot of great options, and I think that's the best food place we have here. But that is the marquee food option right there, is the Chicago-style pizza burger.
Yeah, and they cut it into 4 little evenly shaped slices, if you will, and they're about this tall, and it is an experience. And like you mentioned, to their credit, I mean, you've got to get down there early before there's a long line to get back to the booth in time for the pregame show, because they're making it fresh. I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah, and I have many times right down there by the entrance to the field for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans.
Yeah, it's right there. It is. No, it's great, man. I mean, we have a lot of good food options, but that's my favorite one by far. And it's a special occasion. It's only when Jason Kempf and Charleston RiverDogs are in town.
Yeah, and we tried to get, and I think we also would be doing a disservice if we didn't mention the illustrious video guys who have been here in Myrtle Beach during your tenure. You started with Camden and then Britton.
I had Alex in 21.
Well, I never met Alex. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm sure we would have gotten along swell. They sit right next to me through some glass in the press box, but I think Britton said he was going to try it, and I don't believe he ever committed to it.
I don't know if he might have, but the one thing that I did with him, and you guys weren't here for this, but this was it was in May, and it was a Wiener Wednesday, so we did a hot dog eating challenge, 9 hot dogs, 9 innings, and Britton got through with it in the 5th.
Yeah, how did you do?
Not great. I mean, I got through, I think 5. I was on my 6th, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And now keep in mind, you're trying to broadcast a game while eating hot dogs, not a ton of breaks. It's just, it wasn't I didn't have a very good strategy going into it.
What was your strategy? Did you not have one, period?
I was going to try and eat one in between every inning. So middle of the first, have one. Middle of the second, have one. And then by 5, I got stuffed and I couldn't do it. I just stalled.
I felt like there was a lot of hype,
Yeah.
to the whole thing, and then the payoff in the end. I mean, you only ate 5 hot dogs.
No, but
From afar, I was a little bit, disappointed.
The principle was there. I showed that I had effort. I tried to put my whole effort into it, and just came up short. And Britain, just sitting there over, tracking the game, was able to down him. So credit to him. But it started a little bit of a trend because South Bend did it a couple of games after that, and then we saw a couple of other broadcasters try it, which I thought was pretty cool. But never again. I can't do it.
So are you trying to say? So you said it's hard for you to do because you're broadcasting a game while trying to eat them. Are you saying that what he's doing, Britain, that is, running kind of some TrackMan stuff, that's not difficult at all?
No, not at all. No, but
because that's kind of the sentiment I was getting there. Is like, hey, I'm doing important things like broadcasting. I can't eat hot dogs. Britain had time to do that.
Not what I'm saying at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying I have to speak more than Britain does during the game. So
Fair.
I have to, it's a little bit different. I can't really multitask there.
And also a credit to him, he listened to you pretty much every night. And I think part of the reason he did that was to mock you if you made a rare mistake.
Yeah.
But I mean he was dedicated to the Pelicans broadcast.
He liked it. His family would watch. That was always super cool. Yeah, he always tuned in, and he would text me data stuff that he saw on the Hawkeye. I don't think it's TrackMan anymore. It's Hawkeye. But he would text me the data about home run exit velos and the distance they went and all that stuff. So he was a big help. And yeah, Britain was great. I had a lot of fun with him last year.
All right, enough of patting his ego because nobody's here for that except for probably Britain and his family. But I just wanted to talk about the Carolina League. I think it's a relatively large league now. The way minor league baseball has been restructured. You get a good taste of different farm systems in the American League, the National League. And you're seeing guys now as the league keeps getting younger, like right at the beginning of their career, where they used to have a year or two of complex league or rookie ball. Now you had Ed Howard right away, basically, after he was drafted the following year. Pete Crow Armstrong got here after the trade. What have your thoughts been on the Carolina? I think it's a really fun league because you're not playing the same team minus 2021.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in more detail, but over and over, you're playing a bunch of different teams. You're seeing different players every time you play a team. And I think it's been a pretty exciting league considering how young the guys are now.
I'd say so. I think and I tell people this all the time, it's a really cool job to have because you're getting these guys. It's their first exposure to professional baseball. I mean, you talk about, PCA coming to us right after the trade, Ed Howard a few years ago, the international players, Christian Hernandez for us last year. He was really hyped up, and he got to us, and it's really his first exposure of playing baseball in a stadium with fans. So it's really cool to see players in that part of their career. Now there are some growing pains, right? And you see, sometimes the pitching isn't great, and guys have to learn location and all that kind of stuff. But you get to see that in real time, and you see the development and the improvement as the season goes on. But yeah, the stage where they're at in their careers is interesting, not only on the baseball field, but from a media standpoint, because a lot of them haven't done interviews before or don't have a lot of experience doing that. So we get to kind of introduce them to that and help them out with that along the way. But it's a really, really fun league to cover and a lot of fun systems in the league as well. Like you said, a lot of good teams are covered in the Carolina League. So yeah, it's a really enjoyable experience.
And of course, the Low A East, the 1 year of the Low A East, which is the Carolina League prior to getting the regional name back.
Well, the one thing that, and I don't know how people are still confusing this, but we were Low A for 2021, and they switched that to Single A starting in 2022, and now that's what people are still calling it. I see Low A more than I see Single A.
Yeah, and I think that's how it was done for a long time because you had Low A and then it's still High A.
Yeah.
So there's like a delineation where in the past, Single A was the combination of Low A and High A.
Yeah.
Now they got rid of Low A, because it doesn't sound great, and so they call it Single A, and it helps, not sound as like developmental, I guess, if you will. So I think that's why it's kind of the old-fashioned way of doing it that I've heard it too, where people haven't embraced Single A as one level of baseball.
I see why they made the change. I mean, it sounds a lot better.
It's like where I grew up, they used to have the first time you started playing baseball was Pee Wee. Mm-hmm. Now it's rookies.
Right.
They got rid of the Pee Wees because, it just didn't sound great for the large children who were playing. You can't
Which
be
I was
playing
not
Pee
one of
Wees.
those.
And I was. So that's the dichotomy of baseball
that's
right there. But also, I think the broadcasters, we have a fairly stable core the last couple of years, whereas you usually get a lot of turnover in those jobs. But I think it's certainly an interesting group, a fun group, though, that know their teams pretty well and care about doing a good job. And, like, you never know with broadcasters. And anybody in baseball will tell you this. There's some guys who just go on air, but off air, they don't want to have a conversation. It's something they can't do. But I think it's a pretty good group of guys that have a lot of fun while doing a good job.
I think so too. I mean, it's been fun these past few years to kind of get to know everybody, and like you said, it's been a pretty stable crew. I mean, you got Greg in Carolina, you got Eric in Fredericksburg, you got John in Columbia, and those guys all do a really, really good job and know a lot about their organizations and systems as well. So it's been really fun to get to know everybody. Obviously, it's been fun to get to know you these past few years.
I'm blushing now.
Yeah, you better be.
Yeah.
But it's also talking about the Cubs system specifically. We've stayed tight since I got here. I mean, it's been, pretty. It's been Alex up top and Mick in Double A and Max and BK at High A and me in Single A. So that is really, that's brought some really, really cool content now that we all kind of get to know each other and bounce ideas off each other and all that. And I'm excited to go see a few of them at CubsCon this weekend. But it's been really, really cool to get to know all the broadcasters and their stories of how they got there.
So to kind of walk through now the last 3 years of the Carolina League and the Low A East and the RiverDogs Pelicans. So 21 was the first year for both of us with the new organization. When I first took this job, the RiverDogs were a Yankees affiliate, and we never played the season in 2020. And then we switched to the Rays, of course. That season got started late, midway through May. But everybody that I'd talked to with the Rays, and of course the Rays at that time, they were known as having the #1 farm system in baseball. I had heard good things. I'd seen Bowling Green play when I was in the Midwest League with Quad Cities, and they were always in the championship series. I'm like, that seems like it would be kind of fun to be a part of. And they said, look, our roster this year is loaded. And I'm like, well, that sounds enjoyable, but we weren't going to have playoffs. So I was like, all right, it's a great year to have a great team, but what do you get out of it?
I forgot that year they didn't announce it until
like
through the
June
season.
or July.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
we just were kind of like, man, we have a really good record, but all right.
And nothing.
Cool. We might get like a plaque that says and then they announced there were going to be playoffs. But I remember that Myrtle Beach team struggled a little bit, but you had some good players on that team. You gave us a pretty good game every time we played. But what were your thoughts heading into that season, if you can think back? First of all, your first year in affiliated ball, meeting the guys, and then thinking about, okay, what kind of team do we have?
I had so many thoughts going. I didn't know what I was doing. I got brought on like halfway through April, and then the season started a few weeks later. So there was a lot of learning on the spot. But once I finally got to know the guys and know that team, it was a really fun team just to watch the development, because the record wasn't great. I think we were 59 and 61, if I can remember. But you saw Ed Howard start off and struggle offensively, and he started to figure it out as the season went on. Jordan Wogu was a second or third round pick out of Michigan, struggled in that first half, and then got things going in the second half, and we saw his power. Matt Mervis will always be my favorite story from that team, because he struggled really throughout the whole year. I mean, we saw the pop off of his bat, but the numbers weren't there. He was striking out a ton. And then in 2022, goes up to High A and just takes the system by storm. And in 2023, made his Chicago Cubs debut early on in that season. So a lot of talent on that team, but it was such a weird time, because you have a whole year off from playing competitive games, and then you just get thrown right into the fire, and guys were just kind of all over the place. I mean, our team was all over the place. I remember that first roster I got had like a 27-year-old on it, and I was like, I don't think we usually see that in Single A. But it was a unique season. But yeah, we did have some good battles. I remember one. It was a walk-off wild pitch. That was one of my favorite games to call, and that was Buddy's win to move him into fourth place all time as far as minor league managers. I'm talking about Buddy Bailey, our manager. But it was a fun season. But I mean, you guys dominated. You guys were
that was a good year.
It was.
Now, I think that's when a lot of people started hating the RiverDogs, because if you talk to people around the league, like, it was a franchise that hadn't won a championship going back to like before my grandparents were born.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, okay, it's a fun place to go. Charleston's a cool city. They get fans, but we're not worried about the baseball team specifically because they haven't been good. But that year, I remember the people in Augusta hated us. We had won like 18 games in a row against Augusta, and we only played, as you brought up earlier, Columbia, Augusta, Myrtle Beach, and maybe Kannapolis or somebody else. We didn't play everybody in the league, and we didn't travel the broadcasters weren't traveling anywhere, so you always had an empty room next to you. It was just an odd year for you. It was your first year in affiliated ball, so you weren't even used to like the old way of having these guys next door, which can be helpful in a lot of ways when you're playing a team. But we were just doing it all by email. But is it true? Is that kind of where the hate for the RiverDogs started? Not saying you hate us. I mean, obviously you love us. You're here.
It just it was like every time we'd play you guys, it was like you just got to shrug your shoulders and tip your cap to what you guys were doing. I mean, me and our old director of video production, Ryan Nicholson, we talked about Curtis Mead all the time. We're like, this guy is insane, and we just loved watching him.
Yeah.
I loved watching you guys. You know, I still a few years later after a couple of championships, but. It's just and our coaching staff would always talk about it. You know, Charleston's got a real deal pitching staff, and we got to figure out how to solve that. But you guys were the top of the bunch.
Curtis Mead will be back in Charleston, by the way, for the Hot Stove Dinner in January.
Wow!
So make sure you get your tickets. Sam, you're invited as well.
Thank you.
You probably have to pay, but you're certainly invited. But Curtis will be there if you want to express your fandom. For what he's done. He made his big league debut last year and was in the starting lineup in the playoffs. But something else happened during 21. And I mentioned, you know what's coming here. I mentioned we didn't travel. So I actually broadcasted all the games remotely from the press box at the Joe, which is one of the most depressing things I've ever done.
I'm sure the lights are off at the stadium.
Right. So everybody leaves at like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I'm just sitting there for 2 hours getting ready for a game, which is going to begin on my one laptop with one camera shot. So you didn't really know what it was like in Myrtle Beach, what it was like here. I didn't know you besides your email, which you're a great emailer, but, it wasn't a true, testament to your personality and all the other wonderful things. It was really hard to get through with a straight face. But, so I'm watching this, and the thing is we would go to break, and then you'd see the promotions on the field. And I had heard, I think you told me during the 5th or 6th inning, something like that, you're going to be doing the bubble ball battle. And if you're unfamiliar, it's two humans in a giant inflatable ball running at each other to knock each other over.
We call them knocker balls.
Knocker balls, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When in Myrtle Beach, use their terminology. So the knocker balls with your mother. And generally, you're cushioned by a large, inflatable ball. It's supposed to be fairly safe. So you tell me you're doing this, and I'm like, okay, let's see it. And I remember watching it on the screen on MLB TV, and I think you only did one rep.
One round.
Right, because you're supposed to do best of 3 or 2 just to give the fans what they want.
Yeah.
And you guys collide. And if I remember right, I saw you kind of propel yourself off of your feet into your mother inside the knocker ball, and you got up and everything looked normal, but she didn't.
No.
So I had to text you like the next day, like what happened. And if you want to tell the story to everyone from the inside of the ball, I think that would be very entertaining.
I don't think I've gotten the chance to actually fully tell this story on a show before, but a defining moment of the 2021 season, my first year in professional baseball. And my mom, credit to her, she's always been a go-getter. She will never shy away from a challenge. She's always been one to have a good time. So she's been watching the games throughout the season, and she's seen the knocker balls, I think it's 4th or 5th inning. And she tells me back in like May, she's like, when I come to visit, I want to do that. And I'm like, I don't know if I can guarantee that, but sure, whatever. So my whole family ends up coming. It was June or July. I can't remember which one. But my whole family, it's my mom, my dad, one of my brothers, my cousins, my aunt and uncle, my grandparents are there, and they all got a suite for that game. Well, every single game day, we have a game day meeting at like 10 o'clock in the morning. So I wasn't planning on saying anything because I was like, you know what? I know Mom wants to do it, but for her sake, let's just hold off. She can just watch this one. But our team president, Ryan Moore, says, hey, and I don't know where this came from, but he goes, we've had some really, really, really bad rounds of knocker ball. Does anybody want to get in and do it for this game? And I was like, okay, well, I mean,
now they've given you
they've given me the opportunity. I can't just let this slip. So I was like, my mom really wants to do it. I wasn't saying that I wanted to do it. I said, my mom really wants to do it. And he goes, okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're going to go against your mom. And I was like, I mean, we got a broadcast, we got a game going on.
Yeah.
Like, he volunteered with Kristen Call, our general manager. They both volunteered to take over the broadcast, and I would go down there and do it against my mother. So the whole day, people, and I think you found out because the Pelicans were tweeting about it.
That's right. That is true. It was a big deal.
Yep, and Hunter, our director of fan engagement, he was kind of hyping it up on social media and telling fans to watch and all that. And so people are finding out and they're coming up to me and they're going, Sam, this is a lose-lose situation, man. Because if you lose
you're not
to your
supposed
mom,
to be. Yeah,
that's embarrassing. But if you beat your mom, what
you're
kind
a
of guy
jerk.
are you?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, we're just gonna have a good time, whatever. Give the fans a show. And so my mom is getting really hyped up over in the suite, and I'm getting more and more nervous. And finally, the time comes, so I put the headset down. Kristen and Ryan take over the broadcast. I go down to the field, and I've never actually said this before, so I don't know if anybody knows this, but my mom goes to me before she goes on the field, and she goes, "Let me win." And I was like,
which makes this funnier. Okay.
Well, because in my mind, I'm like, because I know the way the knocker balls work, and if I let my mom win, she's not going to hit me very hard, so it's not going to. Nothing's going to happen. So I wanted to give her the full experience, and so what I
That's
thought.
one way to put it.
Yeah, what I thought would happen was we'd both get airborne.
Yeah. You'd
it'd
both
be good.
fall.
We'd both fall. Yeah, I didn't think of anything that what I'm about to say. I didn't think that was anywhere in the realm of possibility. But so we get on the field, we get ready. Hunter is doing the MC. He introduces us, and we go. And I propelled at her. I mean, there's a picture. My legs are straight. I am angled at a 45-degree angle, and she is standing straight up. So we make contact. She bounces back. I fall forward. Actually, I didn't get any of the.
Reverb.
I didn't get the reverb. So I propel into her, and she falls on her foot in the worst way imaginable. And I cannot remember the name of the injury, but she breaks a ton of bones in her foot. And she's I knew there was something wrong because she goes down to one knee and she can't get up. And that's what you saw.
Right.
And I'm like, this isn't good. This isn't, I knew this was a lose-lose situation, but this is
this is even worse. This is like,
this is worse. And so they're finally able to get her up off the field, and she's not. There's no tears. Like she's obviously in pain, but she's taking it pretty well. And so she goes, "Go back to the broadcast. Like I'll be fine. Don't worry about me." So I go up and explain myself on the broadcast a little bit, and my brother ends up texting me. He texts me. He goes, "Hey, don't freak out. Just finish the game, but we're taking Mom to the hospital." And they took her to the hospital, and they thought it was originally a broken toe, and I was like, "Oh, it's not that bad."
Yeah, it's just one. Small part.
Yeah, then that can be healed pretty fast. But they go back to Indiana and they got it checked out. And 3 surgeries later, she is back to normal here in 2023. But I remember you texted me. It was during the game. You texted me. You said something. I think you were asking about a pitching change or something. And you go, by the way, did you just injure your mom?
Yeah, and I didn't know that. Like I thought maybe she lost her wind and was just on a knee collecting her breath. No. And at that point is when. Again, I hadn't met you yet. I thought, well, this might not be that good of a guy. He just went in there and launched like a missile at his mother, and then she didn't get up. But are you guys on good terms still?
We're good. We are good. And I was getting tweeted at by fans, that were watching the broadcast. Like, what were you doing? And I was like, I was trying, I thought she wanted the full experience and all that stuff. But we are good. I got her flowers, I think, upwards of 4 or 5 times. She did go through a few
Now, you weren't doing that
surgeries.
prior to the surgeries?
No, I was.
Okay.
I was.
Okay.
But, I felt like I should ramp this one up a little bit.
For sure.
And, no, we're fine. I saw her over the holidays. She's doing well. For Christmas that year in 2021, I got her a framed picture. On the frame, it says, "Mom, I love you to the moon and back." And in that picture frame is the picture of the contact.
When things were still good. Yeah, right before
disaster.
Have you ever seen that? There's like a Twitter account with college basketball that said like images preceding unfortunate events. That would have been on there.
Literally.
I might have to start one for the Carolina League. That will be the profile picture and everything.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing the insight to that.
Of course.
It was, obviously unfortunate, but from your end, kind of funny.
We can laugh about it now.
Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, you guys are still mother and son, which is big after such a catastrophic thing. Yeah, we were talking about the broadcasting remotely, and you said in an empty stadium with the lights off. That was the case most of the time. One time we had a concert on the field at the Joe.
Yeah.
So, like, my room was shaking with the bass, and I was calling a game in Kannapolis, which the night before, and this was another challenge, they didn't tell me that the start time had changed. So 7 o'clock start, I get on, start doing pregame, and then I pull up MILB TV, and I get to it, and we're winning 1-0 in the first inning with the guys on the corners. I'm like, what is going on? It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
How do we have a run? And I looked at the schedule, and it said 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on? And so I think I texted somebody the next day, or our GM emailed their GM, and he's like, what happened? And it turned out it was July 3rd, so the fireworks show they had like a sound warning in the city or a deadline that you couldn't make noise anymore with fireworks. So they had decided to push the start up like 20 minutes, but didn't tell me because I wasn't there, which is something you forget about. The other guy that's just broadcasting in a room, and I'm like, it's the first inning. How do I play this off?
Well, that's where you Ronald Reagan it, right? And you get the 2 drumsticks and
just go back to
the
right start. Yeah, in honor of Jesse Goldberg, Strassler, and Lansing, who does the old throwback game. And I almost had to do that, but I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'll just pick it up here.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what happened, but there's guys on second and third, and the RiverDogs are up 1-0. Let's go. So that was an odd one. Didn't even get to tell you who was pitching for the other team, but the RiverDogs had scored. So obviously that was a hectic year. And then 2022 was really fascinating, especially the games between the RiverDogs and Pelicans, because at the half, it was the 2 best teams in minor league baseball. They happened to be in the same division. And that was the year where you guys had, Pete Crow Armstrong, James Triantos, all those guys at the beginning. And for a good chunk of the year with some of the other players that were important, Kevin Alcantara. But what an end to the first half. And I tell this all the time that, like, I was in the hospital. We just had a baby.
Yeah.
We went on a walk-off home run. I know you were watching an eye on that. You guys were in Kannapolis. But Luis Leon hit a walk-off home run to beat Columbia for the RiverDogs, which meant if you lost to Kannapolis in any of the games that week, which you were losing every game after the 5th inning and kept coming back to win, the RiverDogs were in as the first-half champion. If you guys won, it was Myrtle Beach in as the first-half champion. And Luis Leon hits the walk-off home run. Do you remember, like, seeing that? And what were you thinking at that point? Because you guys were losing.
Well, not only that, but, like, we had the top 2 winning percentages in, like, all of minor league baseball.
Exactly.
Right. So if one of the teams lost the first half, it was heartbreaking.
Right.
So the whole week we just had a lot of great comebacks, and we got Luis Devers going on the mound for, I think it was a Thursday game because it was in the end of the first half. Luis Devers was one of our top pitchers, and he just gets shelled. I mean, I think we were down 6-0 at one point in that game. And then we come back, and there was a lot of back and forth in there. We took the lead. Kannapolis comes back. But I got an eye on your game, and I'm like, all right, Columbia, which Columbia was not very good that year.
Right. Not in the first half. They were good in the second half.
That's right. I forgot about that. But I got an eye on your guys' game, and I see the Columbia's got a lead, and I'm like, all right, let's hope they can hold it. And because I don't travel with the team, so I was back in one of our video guys' apartments because we were still doing work. Like we had stuff to do on social media and stuff, stuff like that. So we're watching it, and then we got the Charleston game on a laptop. We got the Pelicans game on the TV, and we see you guys start to make your comeback, and then the walk-off home run by Leon, and we're like, I think we were down at that point.
Right.
I think we were losing. I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way, because I know for a fact. Because our starting rotation was incredible. I know they're all getting called up soon.
Right.
And I don't like our chances.
Got to make it in the first half.
I don't like our chances in the second half. So my heart just sank. But then we come back a dramatic sequence to, I think it went to extras that game. And we have Ezekiel Pagan score on a little chopper by Ethan Hearn. And we took the lead, and we were able to close it out and win that game to win the first half. But just super dramatic. And both teams, Charleston and Myrtle Beach, very, very competitive, very stacked rosters that year, and it was really fun to watch.
And then I remember watching it, too, in the hospital, your game afterwards, and it was in the 10th, right, where Pagan, entered the matrix at home plate. Like, the throw beat him by a mile, and then he, hovered in the air and twisted his body around the catcher somehow.
Well,
and I'm like, our guys in the clubhouse were like, oh, this isn't meant to be.
Credit to Dan Haloti in Kannapolis because he was calling that game. But he goes, he says something like, Pagan is flopping around like a fish. Because that's what he was doing. And he somehow got his hand on the plate and was able to score the winning run. I mean, it came down to the wire. And our video guys ended up doing a really good story about that whole day, and how it progressed throughout the day and how we were able to win that first half championship. But it was dramatic.
And it took the RiverDogs a little while to rebound from that because they were like, man, what are we? And we had the same thing where all these guys are going to get promoted. Now, the good thing with the Rays has been that for a lot of years, whoever leaves, they have a guy who's very similar in terms of talent that comes back in. And so we ended up making the playoffs, which of course means the 2 half champions meet again. It's a best-of-3 series, which I've always think is odd now. I wonder if you could choose, because technically you had home field advantage in a best-of-3 series. Game 1 is on the road, and then 2, and if necessary, 3 are in Myrtle Beach in that case. And same thing this year. But if you could choose, I wonder how many teams would choose to go at home first, get the lead, and then know you only need one more win. Because that year you guys came to Charleston. We had J.J. Goss on the mound, who had been really good. I believe you guys had Grant Kipp after he had been drafted, who started game one and then ended up becoming one of the better pitchers in the league the next year. But we were able to get the win in game one. What were your thoughts at that point after leaving Charleston that night? I think you were driving back with Buddy, getting ready for game two here.
Not good. I mean, it's just, I'm just being honest. Like we had a really, really young team at that point in the season because our whole rotation was all up in high A. We had a few of our hitters get promoted that year, and we didn't really have the team compared to you guys that would have gotten the job done. And I thought, maybe and Grant wasn't, he had a solid start in Charleston.
Absolutely.
But it just, I just didn't think it was meant to be. I just didn't think we had the players at that time in their development to be able to beat a team like you guys. So it didn't feel all that good. And we ended up, it was competitive for the first few innings in that second game. But you guys kind of ran away with it at the end.
Yeah, I think each team hit a home run in the first inning, a solo home run.
Yeah.
And then there was an inning, we had a big inning.
Yeah.
And then we had a big lead going into the ninth. And then things got kind of interesting at some point. You guys had a couple of extra base hits. Crowd starting to get into it a little bit, and then able to finish it off. But that lineup for the playoffs that year, I've told people, was the best lineup I've seen in minor league baseball. When we added Caminero, who's obviously made a name for himself, late in the year, Brock Jones was there. It became a problem. Dominic Keegan, those guys all ended up being pretty darn good baseball players. So that's 2 years now that we're into it. And then this year, again, you guys were the best team in the league for most of the year. I mean, you finished with the best record in the league. But this team for Myrtle Beach was really fun. And on the other side, I want to know what you were thinking as you watched your team go like this, and the RiverDogs were having a year that they hadn't had in a long time, finishing last in the first half.
Well, it's so different from 2022 to 2023 because 2022 we knew we were getting Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, PCA, Luke Little on the mound. Luis Dever, we knew that team going into it was going to be good. This year, it was kind of more of a mixed bag. I didn't really know who was going to break out, and we were going to have that kind of team. And we didn't start off all that well. I think we started 13-16 or something like that. And then we go on to win 22 of the final 28 games in that first half and lock up that first half championship for a second year in a row. We got to win that championship at home on a Sunday, which was really cool, against Fredericksburg. My mom, actually, to cap off the knocker ball story.
Yeah.
My mom was at that game that we clinched the first half championship this past year. She threw the first pitch, perfect strike.
Oh, beautiful.
Good, nice little bookend. And then, we knew we'd get players that would get promoted. I knew we'd get more guys from Arizona, more inexperienced guys that got to learn. But the winning didn't stop in that second half. We still had a really good bullpen. Jose Romero was really solid out of the bullpen. Cohen Moreno had some really good outings. And we just kept the momentum going. So it was a lot different from the year before, where we just totally fell off in the month of August in 2022. So we had momentum, and that first game in Charleston, first off, the environment, incredible.
Yeah,
incredible. I mean, you guys sell that place out, and the fans are really tuned in. So, but just such a low scoring game, and I thought if we could sneak out with a win here, because I knew you guys were gaining steam. If we could sneak out with a win here, I really like our chances going back to Myrtle Beach, just with our lineup and the guys that we had in our lineup, because we led the league in home runs last year, and just had some really, really dangerous guys at the plate. But that first game went your guys' way in a pitcher's duel. But.
Yeah, I thought that you guys were a bad matchup. First of all, we had just played close to the end of the regular season, so we kind of got a little preview with we still had to clinch. You guys were kind of setting everything up to be ready to go with 1 week to play.
Yeah.
But you guys added some bats in the draft that were problematic, to say the least. Brian Calmer, Jonathan Long, Bateman late in the year from the Midwest also. But I was like, man, and then our coaching staff said, all right, they have lefties. They're going to throw lefties. Like, we know that's going to happen. Drew Gray's going to throw. Santi's going to throw. We're going to see lefties. Our lineup is basically left-handed hitters from top to bottom. And it was like, man, if we can win game one, which you mentioned was a low-scoring game, I thought you guys had some uncharacteristic play in that game where it just didn't go how I thought it was going to go, and I know how you didn't think. So we come back here, and again, it's a best-of-3 series. So we're in the weird spot where we have the hotel booked, but we're not going to go there because if we win, we'd immediately either head back to Charleston or go to whoever wins the North.
Yeah.
But we might just be in a hotel for a night. If we lose both, then we're going home. Like, you can't unpack. So it was a weird. Or if we win in game 3, now we're going to another city, and it's actually a 4-day trip. So it was an odd moment for us. And then you guys dominated game 2. And I thought Marcus Johnson threw really well that day for us. There just wasn't a lot of offense for the RiverDogs. And at that point,
we struck out like 17. I think it was 17 strikeouts in that game. And
Kevin it wasn't all that competitive. And he came out of the bullpen and did that. But at that point, I would imagine you were like, okay, this is more what I expected. Like, you were excited for game 3, but incredibly nervous. I remember you texting me like the night and then the day after that.
Yeah, I after that game 2 win, I finally get to broadcast a playoff win for the first time, and I was very, very hopeful because we had Marino Santi going that game 3 because Drew Gray threw in game 2 and I think he went 3, and then Kevin Valdez just locked the door and went like 4 innings and struck out 7 or 8, and then Santi had thrown really, really well throughout the season, and he had a couple of slip ups late in the year, but. I felt good about him being on the mound. He knew what he was doing, and he's got really good stuff. And so for that game 3 to turn out the way that it did was extremely disappointing. I mean, let me tell you, because I was just, I was excited. I mean, I don't know. We were on marquee for that game 2. I'm not sure if we were on marquee for that game 3 or not. But every broadcaster wants a chance to win a championship, right, and go to the championship. And I really thought that our best chance in my 3 years here was with this team. Especially the way that we hit. And you mentioned the three guys with Bateman, Long, and Calmer. But it simply was not meant to be. And, I mean, you can talk about what happened in that game, but it was tough to watch.
Yeah, I remember it was kind of weird because we were in the hotel and we're like, this is the first time we feel like our season might be over. It hadn't happened in the first 2 playoff runs until game 5 and 21. And it's like, it's literally if you lose, you're done and you're going home. And funny story, I remember Hannah, our producer here, I wish we could flip the camera around. Someday we're going to do that. But she texted me in the morning and was like, I don't have a great feeling about tonight. And then an hour later, she said, never mind. I had coffee. I feel a lot better. Like, we're going to win. And I'm like, all right. I mean, not that she controls a lot about the game, but if she believes, it can happen. But, I think where it went wrong for you guys is you guys had the video ready if you clinched the championship. And one of your staff members came over and said, hey, Sam, it's done. Do you want to see it? And they were like, oh, you can come too. So I went over there, and you're like, we shouldn't have done this. Like, I don't think I want to see it. But you played the video. Wonderful voiceover, by the way. I wish it had.
Thank you.
I don't wish it had gone out public because that would have meant we didn't win. But at the same time, it was well done. It was a nice video. I wonder where that exists somewhere right now. But when that was played, I thought, uh-oh. Like, they're setting themselves up here to be really disappointed.
Well, you have to, right? Because, like,
it's
100%. Such a quick turnaround. And, like,
we were selling playoff tickets in July. Like, you just got to be ready in case it happens.
Right. And I know. And you guys, the final score was what, 18-4?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I said it on the broadcast, and I'll say it again, but, I was like, Sam, why are you getting so invested in the Carolina League playoffs?
You have to, but you spend your whole summer doing it.
No, I know. And, like, the fan in you comes out, and you get to know the players, and you get to know their stories, and you watch what they're working on throughout the year, and you see these guys every day. Yeah. And then, just for the season to end like that, I mean, you had gotten texted from a couple of people. You said, the broadcaster sounds pretty depressed.
And I know that you're good, and you're a very good broadcaster, and I mean that. Like, that. I enjoy listening to you when we're not playing because I never do that, obviously. And they said, man, this guy just sounds depressed. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, kind of. But, like, there was the huge inning early in the game. And, like, I just looked over in between innings, and you were just sitting there like this.
Yeah. Like, well, we had a ton of walks, and you could just watch the season ending. And we love our jobs, and you never want to see that end. So for that to be the last one is always tough. But the whole year I was pretty confident that we were going to potentially get a ring, and it just wasn't meant to be in 2023.
And how, be honest, like how, when we are in the championship the last 2 years, how badly did you want Lynchburg or Down East this year to win?
I didn't.
Really?
I was going for you. I was cheering for the RiverDogs. I was cheering for the RiverDogs, man, because I respect what you guys have done, and you guys have had some really talented teams, and it's been fun to watch. And, I know you guys, and, so I support it. I was cheering for you guys every year in the championship.
That's a class act.
I appreciate that.
And if you guys had beat us, I would have cheered for you. Maybe.
Really?
You personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Of course. We know each other well enough.
Yeah.
All right, just a few, just kind of rapid fire, if you will, things to wrap it up.
Hit me.
Who's your favorite player to watch since you've been in the Carolina League? It can be a Pelican.
It can be a Pelican.
All right. Who's your favorite Pelican to watch?
Oh, okay.
In your 3 years.
Man, this is hard. We only got him for a month and a half of Brian Calmer last year, and there's some recency bias there, but Calmer was just he tore it up. Like, he got to us and just went on a tear, and he had so much power from the right side of the plate, and was just super fun. I think defensively, Ed Howard, we know he struggled at the plate in 2021, really, really struggled, but man, that guy had a glove, and he's had to deal with some injury problems since then, and really hasn't gotten a good opportunity to work his way up through the system, but he just made some plays at short. He was 18 years old at the time,
Right.
And I was amazed every single night when he would do something like that. So those are the few Pelicans on a league-wide basis. Man, I don't know. I mean, there's been so many. Xavier Isaac for you guys was
Curtis Meade, maybe.
Okay, Curtis Meade. Yeah, you got to remind me. Curtis Meade, man, he was something else. A man from down under. He was fun to watch. But yeah, there's been a lot of talent that's come through.
All right, guy that, and I'll give you two examples as I let you think, but a guy on another team that maybe wasn't a huge prospect, but that you hated to see either come to the plate or on the mound because for whatever reason they were fantastic against your team. And I'll give you two Pelicans, for example. One was Juan Mora. Yeah. He did something different in every at bat, left field line, right field line, in the gap, ground ball. Just found a way to get on base. And the other, and you know what I'm going to say here, Jacob Wetzel, 2 years in a row.
The RiverDog killer, man.
We could not get him out. He made great plays in right field or left field, wherever you put him. But Jacob Wetzel he's a RiverDogs killer.
Yeah.
Is there anybody
or
like
Ethan
that?
Hearn.
Ethan Hearn as well. He had a couple triples in big spots or big hits.
Yeah. I think Cooper Kinney kind of gave me some goosebumps. I think because he – what was that first game, he led off the game with like a triple, or it was either
he's the two-hitter, but like early on he had an extra base hit.
And that's where I kind of got pretty deflated. But yeah, he was a player that I was scared to see. Oh man, I don't know. There's been so many. I'd probably say he's the top one that I can think of right now. I mean, you know that there's a special place in my heart for Geraldo Catalina.
Yep.
Big fan of.
I do know that.
Geraldo.
I know that. He has 3 championship rings. He's the only guy who has got the 21, 22, and 23 ring.
Yeah, that is incredible. But I don't know. There's a few. I'd have to think about that a little bit longer because I can't think of a name right now. But
that's okay.
I go with Cooper Kinney.
All right. Place in the Carolina League you haven't been that you want to go.
Oh, there's plenty I haven't been. Because you've been traveling and I haven't. So I've been to Charleston. I've been to Columbia.
Yep.
I want to check out Augusta Stadium because I know that Augusta's got a really new stadium and it's nice. I want to see that. I think the number one place is probably down east to go see.
Yeah.
What's the Mother Earth's
Motor Lodge?
Yeah. That's the one where it's like you got to have an experience there.
Yeah, I think before, and unfortunately they're leaving the league after this season. So you have to find a way to get to Kinston. It is like you're stepping back into the 80s. And the hotel is the same way. I mean, it's actually a very decent hotel. Like it's not a bad hotel, but it's like you're stepping into the 60s with the bedspread and everything. Yeah. And they have mini golf in the middle of the hotel. You
can't beat that.
I mean, we are out there literally until 2 a.m. every night playing mini golf. And Cooper Kinney can tell you that I beat him in a one-hole playoff. Yeah. Heartbreaker for him, and I will never forget it.
If you go, which I actually did this last week because I was here talking about.
You went to Kinston last week?
No, I wasn't in Kinston. came to the ballpark here in Myrtle Beach, and we were talking about which road trips I can go on for this year, and we were talking about down east. And if you go on the website for Mother Earth's Motor Lodge, they have a picture. It's like amenities, and the picture is this like pool that is nowhere near that hotel. It's like a stock image.
Right.
I'm like, they are fooling people with this thing because it's like in the middle of the Bahamas. Like it doesn't look like it's in Kinston, North Carolina.
They're not similar. It's kind of like California and Indiana, Kinston
almost,
and the Bahamas.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's if you go and you have to for at least one game.
Yeah.
Like the broadcast booth is just like if I'm sitting here, it is just wider than my shoulders on each side.
Oh, yeah,
It is
yeah.
quite the event.
Yeah.
But you got to do it. Okay. Weirdest job that you've had? I know you're younger than me. Like I was a produce man at a grocery store for 3 or 4 years. And the funny thing is, people I work with will tell you I don't eat really many fruits and vegetables. Very healthy.
There you go.
But I worked in produce, and so I can tell you a lot about them.
Yeah.
I just don't like them.
Oh man, weirdest job. I've been lucky where I haven't had a lot of weird jobs. I was a baseball umpire when I was really young. I was like 12 years old and I was umpiring.
You were umpiring for other baseball players? How old were the players if you were 12?
Oh, I was 12. They were like 8 or 9. But I would do it with my dad. Like it was a thing that you could like that your dad would be like the main umpire, but you would be like on the bases and kind of learn things. So I did that, and then I umpired for a really, really long time, and I was umpiring until my senior year of high school. So I did that. I've served at many restaurants, one of them being Walk-Ons, which I've been here this past off season, which has been really fun.
Dude, they're going to be flooded now.
Yeah,
with fans coming
Walk-Ons
to
in Surfside on 544. Come see me. I'm there usually on Monday and Tuesday lunches. But doing that, there really hasn't been anything too unique. But yeah, it's been a little bit of just kind of normal stuff, I guess. I don't know.
All right, 2 more. Will Butler make the NCAA tournament?
Oh my gosh, you're gonna put me on.
They're a
spot
decent
about
team.
it.
They just don't have wins, Sam.
Yeah, it's tough to. I mean, the Big East is incredibly tough,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a good team. It's a much better team from the years before.
At least you don't let the losses bother you, though.
That's not true. That is absolutely not true, and you know it because I texted you about it last week.
Yeah. You said you had a midlife crisis in your mid-20s.
That was caused by the loss of St. John's. Yeah, I get really into it. I mean, I used to dress up. I've told you I used to dress up as a penguin and sit in the Butler student section. Well, I wouldn't sit. I would stand, but I would be in the Butler student section and just yell my head off. I get really, really invested. I don't think we make it this year. I think we're an NIT team this year. I think next year we have a much better chance because the guys will have 1 year playing under each other. And I think I'm being optimistic, but I think most people are going to stay because the way they're playing right now is really fun and everyone's kind of getting along and there's a lot of chemistry there. There's just not they're not hitting the big time shots that they need to. So it's a tough league. We'll see.
And then lastly, how bad would you love to beat the Charleston RiverDogs in 2024 and get a chance to play for the championship as well?
You know, it's not in my control, but it was definitely number 1 on my New Year's resolution list was to
make sure the guys who do control that take out your frustration on Charleston.
I will make them know, hey guys, I don't care about any other team in the Carolina League. We just need to take down Charleston. That is the number 1 objective. And I'll tell the coaching staff that needs to be. You know how Ohio State and Michigan, right? That's their one big thing is that if you can beat the other team in the rivalry game, that's a successful year in the eyes of most fans. That would be I don't even care about the playoffs. Let's win the season series and let's do some damage because it's been a rough 3 years against you guys. So we'll see. I do really want a championship. So we'll see what happens this upcoming season. But I'm super excited for it.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to see you certainly and have enjoyed playing the Pelicans over the last few years. But thanks so much for taking some time today. Good to get out on location here in balmy Myrtle Beach in the winter. Bring the trophy for you there.
Of course.
I know you got to touch that. We might get a picture of you holding it with a RiverDogs hat afterwards. But thanks so much. Again, we don't see each other a ton in the offseason. We see each other plenty during the season. But thanks for joining us, and best of luck as we head into the new season.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming up to Myrtle and doing this and setting up in our clubhouse. This was awesome, and looking forward to 2024.
Thanks for joining us once again. Again, we appreciate your feedback on Facebook, X, Twitter, on Instagram. Let us know who you want to hear from. We've had a couple of requests that we're working on getting for you coming up in the near future. We'll talk to some guys who are coming to Charleston for the hot stove dinner, but we'll talk to you again soon with another episode.